Hi, I'm James from Borussia Dortmund English, and this is the Echte Liebe podcast. As always, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for again tuning in. There is only one thing I can talk about this week, isn't there? Well, to be precise, there's 6. Last week in episode 3, I spoke on why I believe that the Schalke result wasn't as bad as people were making out. And more importantly, how the best way to improve everyone's outlook from that game was by winning against Köln. And if I'm honest, even I didn't see that result coming. We haven't fared too well against the Billy Goats as of recent times. Before Saturday's game, we'd only beaten them once in our last 5 meetings. Not to mention the loss earlier in the season after leading at half time. So, with all that to contend with, it was just one of those games where I couldn't tell which BVB was going to turn up. As Edin Terzic had said after the Revier derby, we were disappointed, and especially with the second half performance coming just days after our Champions League exit. Both fans and players alike seem to have taken the last week and a half quite badly. So when we throw that into the mix, along with notable absentees which again included Gregor Kobel, Julian Brandt and Karim Adeyemi, it really was anyone's guess as to how we were going to respond. Then came the team sheet, which both surprised me and left me a little apprehensive. I was fully expecting Salih Özcan to be in that midfield, but he was ruled out with a cold that seemed to have kept Marco out the week before. In his place came Mo Dahoud. Now, it always worries me when a player starts a game when he already knows that he's leaving at the end of the season. I guess it can go either way. They'll either not give everything, because ultimately it doesn't matter to them anymore, or they'll give everything and try and impress possible suitors for their next move. But I should never have doubted Mo. His time here over the last 6 years hasn't always been plain sailing. He's constantly struggled with shoulder issues, but one thing he has always given is his all for this club. Sebastian Kehl said in an interview with Bild recently, "I really have a very high opinion of him, both in sporting terms and as a person." I think most Borussia Dortmund fans would agree with him, and again on Saturday, he proved exactly why we do. Also coming into the side was Marco Reus and Haller and Malen. I really like these two playing together, especially when they play behind Haller. I feel it's the right balance of skill and pace, and they always seem to cause problems. Yet, Haller and Malen's situation is certainly an interesting one. In his time with PSV, he was prolific, netting 40 goals in 81 appearances. In his first season in the black and yellow, he only managed to score 9 goals in 38 games in all competitions. Many, like myself, thought that he'd then kick on this season and really find that form that made him so highly sought after. But so far, it just hasn't happened. 2 goals in 24 games before Saturday probably didn't tell the whole story, but it's clear that he needed to get back on the score sheet, and fast. In the first 10 minutes of the game, I thought we looked quite lacklustre and a little nervous. We let Köln have a lot of the ball and invited them onto us. I didn't know whether that was Edin's plan or just that Köln were better than us in the early exchanges. But as soon as we got a foot on the ball and did what we do best, we took the lead. Marius Wolf played a ball into Malen, who produced a lovely turn to beat his man down the right, before playing a ball through to Guerrero, whose neat finish nestled into the far corner. We'd finally woken up, and we did so with a vengeance, as just 4 minutes later a beautiful bit of play on the edge of the box between Reus and Guerrero created a perfect chance for Haller to rifle one in to the roof of the net. That was a goal that he desperately needed, and one I know every BVB fan enjoyed. 90 minutes played, a goal and an assist for Rafa meant we were cruising and in control. But then came a bit of luck. Remember the penalty that was given against us in the Chelsea game? Well, here we were again, but this time it was on Mo Dahoud. A whipped-in free kick and a slight flick on hit Mo's right hand, and as soon as it did I thought, this is a penalty. To be honest, I was adamant. There was absolutely no doubt, but again, I was wrong. Only a corner was given after a short VAR check, and I honestly believe that we got away with one there. But sometimes you need a bit of luck, and that seemed to take the wind out of Köln's sails, as just after the half an hour mark came a moment that will go down in Borussia Dortmund history. After Malen's point-blank effort was saved, he kept the ball alive and pulled it back to Rafa. He took a touch, got his head up and fed Marco Reus, who finished his 160th goal, taking him to the top of Borussia Dortmund's goal-scoring charts in the professional era. Shortly after, I did a post on the Borussia Dortmund English Facebook and Twitter pages stating that Marco Reus had become Borussia Dortmund's all-time leading professional goal scorer. There were a few comments saying that I was wrong, and that actually it was Alfred Preisler. On 177 goals, this is true. He is the all-time leading goal scorer wearing the black and yellow. But it wasn't until 1963, when the Bundesliga was formed, that German football was classed as a professional sport. The powers that be were worried that the national team would be left behind. So yes, Marco Reus is Borussia Dortmund's all-time leading professional goalscorer in the modern Bundesliga era. And with only 16 goals to go until he equals Alfred Preisler's all-time goal-scoring record on 177, it's hard to see past this Borussia Dortmund legend not retiring as the greatest ever goalscorer in the club's history. But before we could finish celebrating, minutes later Daniel Malen had broken down the right and struck a shot too hot to handle that was parried into the net for the fourth goal. So far we'd had a masterclass from Rafa, we'd had Marco breaking Michael Zorc's scoring record, and both Haller and Malen getting in on the act, all combining to make for a perfect first half of football. That was until Davie Selke grabbed one back at his second attempt in the 42nd minute. It didn't need to be said that it had left a sour taste in everyone's mouth, especially with how well we were playing. It was just a small lapse in concentration, and it had cost us a goal, and that was something that would need to be addressed before we travelled to the Allianz Arena on the 1st of April. For now though, what a response it had been compared to the sometimes lethargic moments that we suffered against Schalke. We had no issue taking the lead against them, it's just that this time we pushed for more instead of trying to hold on to what we had, and it left us 4-1 up at the break. Going into the second half, I felt comfortable that all 3 points were safe. It was just a question of how many we were going to put past them. The first 25 minutes were a little less frantic than the first half, but then, in true Borussia Dortmund fashion, it again erupted. On the 69th minute, we had a free kick right on the D on the edge of the box. With Reus and Guerrero standing close by, it was probably a surprise that Mo Dahoud was the one to step up and strike it right-footed. A fine save by Marvin Schwab wasn't enough as the ball fell perfectly for Haller to tap in his second of the game. At this point, it had been a 5-star performance with 5 goals, and there were still 20 minutes left to play. We didn't have long to wait though. 1 minute and 44 seconds later saw the ball fall kindly for that man again, Marco Reus. He finished as he always does and moved his tally up to 161 goals for his boyhood club. He'd already surpassed Michael Zorc with the first goal, but this now put him head and shoulders clear at the top of the Borussia Dortmund goal-scoring charts. A perfect way to finish the game, I think you'll all agree, and the disappointment of last weekend was now a distant memory, especially after having 6 new reasons to help us all forget it. This result for me was symbolic, and I know you think that might be a bit far, but hear me out. Last weekend we didn't play our best, and that's an understatement. But we still took an important point, in a game that I feel we'd have lost in previous seasons. Many saw it as 2 points lost. I tried to stay positive and tried to look at it as a point gained. What I really wanted to see though was how this team reacted to that disappointment, and to the pressure and criticism of both the media and some sections of our own fans. This was a response that even the most optimistic of us didn't see coming, and one that definitely wouldn't have happened under previous regimes. We'll need this mental toughness if we are to go all the way this season. That belief and desire is so important, sometimes more so than actual talent. This isn't the most decorated set of players we've ever had, but they possess something that many before them didn't, and it's that will define them over the next 9 games. We now head into the international break, and for a handful of our players it's come at the perfect time, as did something else. I've mentioned before that due to work commitments and a lack of time, I have to record parts of the show on different days, and the best part about it this time around is that I was able to see Bayer Leverkusen do us a huge favour by beating Bayern Munich 2-1. It proves that there are still many twists and turns to come in the Bundesliga title race. There will be factors that will ultimately determine who the next German champions will be. But seeing Marco Reus lifting the Meisterschale above his head in front of the yellow wall on the 27th of May is something that only dreams are made of. As ever, if you have managed to get this far in the show, then I'd like to say a huge thank you. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the show, you can become a Borussia Dortmund English member via the Patreon page. And this really does make a difference. So again, thank you. I'll put all of the links below, but for now, we get to enjoy the build up to what is the biggest game for Borussia Dortmund within the last 10 years. Der Klassiker. I'll see you all on the pages over the next 2 weeks. Take care everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Echte Liebe podcast.